In this video, we are going to make our app dynamic. You'll learn how to add a live search to your users list so you can fit the records in real time as you type. Okay, let's start in the view. We have the app view XML, and the theory guidelines direct us to using a subheader aggregation when we want to use a search field. So we create the subheader aggregation. Within that we need a toolbar, nothing fancy here, and within that we could add our search field. And the search field will need some, come on, what did you do here? This was the search field that I wanted to close. Okay, and this is the toolbar. So okay, here we go. And we want to have it full width, so give it a width of 100%. We also add a placeholder to give the user some clues about what's this about, and we tell this searches your users. And to make this interactive, we need now to add an event handler. And the event that we are looking for is the live change event. And we need to give it a handler, and we call the method like onSearch, and that should it be. So quite easy stuff, I would say. So far, everything we've done was purely decorative, just XML. Now we want to make it interactive. And in OpenUI5, interactivity lives in the controller, as you maybe have guessed right now. So this is what a minimal controller looks like. You have a define section where you import whatever module you are using it. You name it to use it within your closure, and then you just extend and have your own controller running, and all event handler that you might need. And we need the onSearch event handler. This one goes within that extend. So we say like our onSearch is a function, come on, and it takes some event here, and basically that's it. So with that little trick, you declared your event, the live change event, the handler for it to use, which is onSearch, and it's beneficial to always use the .onSearch, because beginning with version 2.0, OpenUI5 will make this mandatory. Right now you can omit it, but it's good practice to do so. And within your base controller, you just declare the function like that. And that's it. Now let's do something, because we now have the event, and now we can query the event for the query string that the user might have already entered. So we declare our const. I like to have short names, so the query is just Q, and we take the event, and it has a function get parameter, and the parameter that we are looking for is the new value. So this will give us whatever the user entered, and we can now play a little bit with it. And maybe just for fun, just do an alert Q here. And let's see if this works. Head over to Chrome, call refresh, and for sure I cannot see the search field. So why is this happening here? Because our Laravel server, no, it's running users batch 1. Come on, what the hell is going on here? navigation, and here is the search field. Okay, sometimes you have to refresh 3 or 4 times until it really takes up the thing, and maybe open also the developer console. Remember, disable cache, important. So we enter some letter, and for sure now you can see we entered the G and we got the alert. So fine, the event is wired, we can continue in the code. The next thing we need to do, we need to get the handle on the users list. Yes, because this is what we want to filter. So let's get a handle on the view. This is very easy done in OpenUI5. You just say the list is this by ID, and the ID we gave it was, I think, user list, but let's look this up in the app XML. Now we called it users list, plural. This is fine. Okay. And from the user list, which is this control instance, the JavaScript instance of that control that you defined in XML here, you can get the binding. Yeah. And the binding can be seen as the glue code between the control and the OData model. So let's go for the binding. The binding is list get binding items, and as always you can look up in the developer documentation of OpenUI5 itself, but let's trust me, that's how to do it. And when we have the binding, we can set a filter on the binding with binding filter, and here you apply the filters. But we don't have filters right now, so we have to create them. Let's first create a variable that holds those. Filters is an array, and then, yeah, to be sure, if we really have something from the client, only then we create a new object, a filter object, and this one we will push into the filters. So, and we will push a new filter, and the filter takes some settings, and those settings are like what path do we want to filter the binding for. And remember, it was the name, it was the user name that we want to filter. What operation do we like to do? We want to filter operation contains. So just when the name contains the string that we give it, then we would have it included in the results list. And finally we need to head it over the value, and that should it be already. So you can see it's very easy. The only thing that I'm missing right now, I used 2 objects here. The first one is the filter object, and the second one is the filter operation, or it's called filter operator. Sorry for the typo here. And we need, of course, to include this. So at the define section we go for sub UI model filter, and we also want to define the sub UI model filter operator. And this is not enough right now, because we also need to declare this here, filter and filter operator. So, and now we are on the safe side. If we didn't do that, then the console would complain about something that it couldn't find. So, okay, let's have a look into the browser if it actually does what it should do. So, and I will make this a little bit bigger that we can see everything, and network tab is open. I will also clear it so that you can see what is the communication between front end and back end that it's happening here. So we filter for G, O, and you see, you've seen already now the list changed. And we go for like Goodman, or no, we go for Gag, Pagag. You can see it here, okay. And when we N, yeah. So every time we add a new letter here, the live change event is triggered. The live change event is doing its stuff and filtering the binding anew, and each filtering is triggering a backend request here. And when you see the payload here, it's like users $filter is gleich contains name G, and we also limit this to 100 result sets. And the second one was like, yeah, the GA, and so on. So this is really, really good stuff. And just like that, we have live responsive filtering without touching the backend or writing any manual DOM logic. How cool is that? A quick side note here. If you look at the code samples in the official OpenUI5 documentation, you will notice that snippets like this one often look a little bit different. Remember, we here use like short variable names. The same thing in SAP would look something like as query is like, and it would also be O event in SAP, so they would call it like that, and then they would say O event get parameter, and the rest will stay the same. And also if they would declare an array like we do here, they would talk to it like a filters is the filter array and the like. I mean, it's the same structure, the same event, the same binding, the same filter logic, but what's different here is just the naming style. And let's talk about that for a moment, because this is what you see when you dive into the documentation on the OpenUI5 website. JavaScript code in SAP samples often relies on those prefixes, and the style is known as Hungarian notation. That's because this style comes from ABAP, a very old language, where you needed to indicate the data type in the variable name, and later from Java conventions that made their way into early UI5. In ABAP or C++, this made sense. The type system on the one side was strict, but the tooling was limited. But in modern JavaScript, especially when you are working in VS Code or using TypeScript, this pattern often becomes redundant and even distracting. And here's the thing, JavaScript is dynamic by itself. In JavaScript, everything is an object, including arrays and strings and even functions. So prefixing every variable with S or O is not only unnecessary, it can also create noise and reduce readability. Modern editors like WebStorm or VS Code tell you what a variable is, and good variable names are self-describing. So in this course, we embrace modern JavaScript conventions, the same way you used to write clean, expressive code in Laravel. We name things based on their intent, not their type. We keep methods small and focused, so text is always clear. We rely on modern tooling with IntelliSense, Hover tooltips, code hints to help us understand types when we need them. And that's why we just write const q is event get parameter instead of const as query is o event get parameter. Both styles are valid, and now that you've seen the difference, you'll know exactly why SAP code samples use those prefixes and how to read them without getting confused. But for this project, we'll stick with the cleaner Laravel flavored approach. So let's take a second and appreciate what we just did. We've wired up the view to the controller and suddenly our app started listening. One small method, a bit of binding, and just like that the UI responds to the user. You type and the list updates instantly. No page reload, no server call, no extra tooling. And that's the part I really like about OpenUI5. It's so powerful, it's structured, and it doesn't ask you to fight it. You describe what you want, you hook into the right place, and the framework handles the rest cleanly, consistently. You have the declarative views bound to live data, enhanced by controller logic, all running right here in the browser. That's a good feeling. Yeah, that's the moment where things start to click. In the next video, we are going to take the next natural step and bring the detail page to life. When a user clicks on a row in the list, we'll show their personal data on the right-hand side. We'll learn how to pass context between controls and how to bind a detail view dynamically, based on what the user selects. See you there.